Today, we're doing the final test comparing the Insta360 One X and the GoPro Hero 7 Black. .88 miles, 8 minutes, 43 seconds per mile. Ridiculous run today, not only because I was running along the Chicago lakefront path with dual selfie sticks with cameras at each end of them, but for another reason, which I'll talk to you guys about at the end of the video. But before I get to the thoughts on this comparison, I want to go over some disclosures. The Insta360 One X was a camera that was sent to me by Insta360 for the purposes of review. As well, did they send me this selfie stick. The GoPro Hero 7 Black is one that I bought with my own money, and also this GoPro, which is an extendable transparent pole, is the first GoPro accessory I ever bought. So it's like a 4-year-old GoPro accessory. So that's one that I also bought with my own money. But Insta360 is not paying me to make this video. They do know that I'm going to be making it, but they're not going to be able to see any of this footage beforehand. They're not going to be able to see the final edit or have any other editorial control until it goes live. So with the disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the comparison. The setup for the two cameras, I had the Insta360 set up at 3K, 100 frames per second. That way I could slow it down. And the color was set to the auto color settings. For the GoPro Hero 7 Black, I had it at 1080, shooting at 120 frames per second. And the color set to GoPro color, shutter set to auto. Shutter also on the Insta360 set to fast, so that way we get clearer images at that faster frame rate. I put the two cameras up on Instagram, so those of you guys who are following me there could get a chance to compare the footage early, and so I could get a chance to see what your guys' thoughts are. And out of about 300 votes, the votes were about split, which is quite a surprise to me. When I did the same thing when I had both cameras at very short range, both mounted side by side on a stubby mount, the votes were 2-1, overwhelmingly in favor of the GoPro Hero 7. So this was quite a difference. The Insta360 wasn't quite coming out on top, but it certainly closed the gap from the short range test. And I think the reason why is because in those two tests, between the short range and the long range, I think we're finally comparing strength versus strength. And let me change up the mount on this real quick so we could talk about that. So now I've got them in the way that I normally would use each one, so I can compare now strength versus strength. Here I've got the Insta360 One X on a stick, which I think it really needs some distance to work at its max potential. And here I've got the GoPro on the stubby, that little alligator clip. It clips to a bag if you want it to. The little alligator clip that I normally run with it at. And I do this because I think the Insta360 One X is really great for wide shots when you want the scene to look grand. It gives you a great sense of the entire scene of where you are. With this, because the angle is a lot closer, and because there's that extra clarity there, you can get really close and have a much more intimate image, but yet it's still wide enough where it's not like you were trying to shoot yourself with an iPhone where it's too close in and you can't really see what's going on. I think the GoPro is perfect at kind of like an arm's length away, both the way that the camera is set up, the sensor is set up, the focal lengths. I think this is really the best way to be using a GoPro. And for the Insta360, I think the best way to be using it is when you're about this far away. And so that's where we can compare the strengths versus strengths. So in the short range test, we were comparing the strength of the GoPro towards a weakness of the Insta360, whereas on this test, we were comparing the strength of the Insta360 to a weakness of the GoPro. The strength of the Insta360 is not only just being a little bit further out and being wider, it's that because of the ability to capture in 360 degrees and you get more image to choose from, which enhances the ability of the software to stabilize the image, you're getting really smooth panning motions, which are just absolutely beautiful in the Insta360. Whereas those kinds of motions, even on a selfie stick, are very hard to do with the GoPro. I've seen some people, SJD puts his GoPro on a little gimbal on a stick, and that looks amazing. I guess that would be the ultimate test, but then it comes down to a question of if we're trying to do an apples to apples comparison. What are the apples that we're comparing? Is the Insta360 One X on a long selfie stick the same thing as a GoPro on a long selfie stick with a little gimbal attached to it? I'm not sure. Is putting both cameras onto this alligator clip and a side-by-side mount, is that an apples to apples comparison? I'm not sure. Is 1080 versus the 3K an apples to apples comparison when you have 3K of an entire image, but you're only punching into a part of it, you're getting a much lower resolution image and then essentially digitally cropping or digitally zooming in order to make and fill the 1080 frame. So it's hard to do an apples to apples comparison. I've tried to do the side-by-side videos, but even because the focal lengths are different and even the lengths of my selfie sticks were different, it makes it for a very hard test to put together. And I don't think that the right way to look at it ultimately is to do necessarily the side-by-side. I think the side-by-sides are useful so you can see based on kind of two similar situations, two similar lighting situations, two similar running situations in terms of action, the angle or the attempted angle, and the lighting. You can kind of eliminate some variables, but ultimately the idea is to compare strength to strength. And when I compare strength of the Insta360 to the strength of the GoPro Hero, for me personally, I prefer the Insta360, and I'm going to be running with that primarily from this point on because I just like the flexibility it gives me and I like the image that I'm getting. Now, I don't have the most discerning eye. I don't have the ability to be like a professional photographer. Number one, I'm a little bit colorblind, but number two, my eyes just don't pick up subtle nuances that are necessary to make a regular photo a great photo or to know the difference between good video and great video quality. But I think that's okay because I'm a videographer and not even a professional videographer. I just make videos on YouTube. And so it's good enough for me. It gets the message that I'm trying to convey, the scenery that I'm trying to convey in my video across in the way that my mind's eye sees it. And so what I'm getting from the camera is not just, oh, look, that's a fantastic image. That's when I'm thinking about the shot in my head mentally. The distance between that and what I'm ultimately getting and putting onto YouTube is as small as possible. And that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Would I like the better clarity of the GoPro? Absolutely. Would I like the higher frame rate of the GoPro? You bet. Yes, I would love all those things that the GoPro is much better at delivering. But the overall experience in terms of the final product, I really like having the Insta360 One X. Does that mean though that I would recommend it for everyone? The answer is no. I don't, even though they're priced the same at about $400 for each one, I think that the Insta360 has a much steeper learning curve. There's a lot more to figure out in terms of taking the camera out of the box and getting footage that's edited on YouTube or for a home video, whatever their ultimate project goal might be. There's a lot more steps in between the beginning and the end. With the GoPro, you just kind of turn it on and record, and whatever you're pointing at, that's what you got. But even then, I know a variety of people who have tons of GoPro footage that they've never done anything with because editing video isn't easy for everyone, and I understand that. If that's a hard and that's a detriment to you, then I think that ultimately the Insta360 may be too many steps for that kind of person. That being said, I do think that for the person that's sharing a lot of stuff on social media and essentially going from camera and having short, very small clips, 5-second, 10-second, 15-second clips, going from camera to directly to social media and not necessarily YouTube, I think that the Insta360 can be a great first camera, or can be an only camera, the only action camera that a person has, because of the fact that the app is relatively intuitive and it has a lot of direct distribution features. You can share directly to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, a variety of different social media sources. So if you're using the app, I think that a lot of the roadblocks, the hurdles of I got to download it to a computer, make sure I have plenty of space, open up Final Cut or Premiere Pro, edit it there, render it out, upload it, put a description. If you don't want to do all that and just want to have shorter clips that are maybe not edited to a cohesive story, but just have clips that you could share with people, I think the Insta360 can be a good one and only camera. But also the GoPro then can also be a good one and only camera as well, because you can share or get content directly from your GoPro, put it onto your phone by connecting it wirelessly, and then edit it directly either on your phone or in the GoPro app. So there's a lot of flexibility there that's growing very quickly in that regard, in terms of what's happening to eliminate kind of like the bottleneck of getting a nonlinear video editor, which can be difficult for a lot of people. The other thing that's great though in that regard is if you are going to be using the Insta360 as kind of a social media camera only, or an Instagram story camera only, because it's capturing so much image, you can pick vertical video, horizontal video, square video, and get screenshots of any of those aspect ratios really easily. And so that's something that's been pretty amazing to me. Whereas with the GoPro, you've got to turn it on and either elect to shoot horizontal video or vertical video at the beginning in order to get the best result. So a little bit of a difference there. Another area where I think the Insta360 does edge out. But those are my ultimate final thoughts on the Insta360 versus the GoPro. A lot of subjectivity in there. Definitely, I'm sure there's lots that you guys want to both, one, correct me on, because I'm sure I got some things wrong, and two, want to talk about. So feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys down there. Oh, before I go, I do want to talk about the crazy thing that happened to me on this run. So it was an unusually cold day today and extremely windy, winds coming out of the north. So we had some kind of colder air coming in, and I'll show you footage of when I was running on one of the icier, wetter parts of the run when I was going down. And going down, I was able to avoid sliding because it was all iced over. I was able to avoid falling. On the way back, it was so cold that all my cameras had died, so I didn't have any footage of it on the way back. But on that same spot on the way back, I'm in between a wall and the water. And I'm coming around and I'm noticing, okay, the sun has been up for a little while and some of the ice has melted, so it's wet but not slick. So I'm running along but staying close up to the wall just to avoid some of the wetter parts down here. All of a sudden I see a huge wave coming up, and it's one of those ones where I could tell it's gonna break over the breaker wall and then come up all along the pavement and get to me. So I start from running, I'm outright sprinting as fast as I can. And I'm still holding the two selfie sticks. So I'm just sprinting as fast as I can. And then I see another bigger wave coming and I could tell, oh, this one's gonna get me. So I'm trying to sprint even harder and I'm going, but then I see the wave, it comes and it crashes into me up to my knees, and I could feel my foot as it's going into the water sliding around before it can find firm footing. Fortunately, I didn't fall. I think if I were filming or trying to film like with two cameras, I definitely would have fallen. I would have lost my balance, but I was able to not fall into the water or get smashed into the wall that I was right next to. So very close call there. Almost totally lost it. Almost totally fell into the wave. I think if I had, that water was coming in so hard and splashing back out so fast that I think that there is a really good chance that I might have ended up in the lake. So very close call today. But by the time I got through the rest of the water, I was high stepping, trying to get through the knee-high water, and I finally made it out onto drier ground, and my feet were just so cold that I couldn't even keep running. I had to stop and catch my breath, not because I was winded, but because the cold was just so bone chilling. And I probably waited there for like a minute before I could kind of collect myself. And then I kept going. I really wanted to quit, but I didn't have a wallet with me, and my phone was just about dead as well. So if I tried to call an Uber, I'm sure it would have died the moment I even unlocked the phone. And so I realized, even though I had 3 miles left of running 3 miles home was going to be the fastest way to get there. By the time I got back, I looked down at my feet and I saw that ice, a layer of ice had formed on my shoes because there was that much water in them, and it was just still that cold out today. A crazy day, but I made it home safely. But man, that was a crazy run. The funniest thing about this whole thing though is, as I'm sprinting through the water and the wave is hitting me and it's getting up to me into the knees, there was another runner also coming by in the opposite direction, and he had started coming and he had seen me get kind of smashed by this wave, and I saw him turn around and he also sprinted as fast as he could the other way. Fortunately, he was able to miss it, but the look on his face was just absolute sheer terror, as well it should have been, because this was a crazy super ice cold water wave and it was gigantic. But that was the end of the run today. I wish there were footage of it. I'm glad that there wasn't, because it probably would have meant that I would have fell, because I would have lost my balance. But a wild story. That's like the other half of this video, is not only just this test, but that crazy wave story. But thank you for humoring me, but like that was just reliving it now. My feet are cold, even though I've been in my apartment and it's been a couple of days since that. Now, before I really go for today, I don't want to forget to talk about our charity run for this week. It's Craig Bowers. He's going to be running the Brighton Marathon in just a couple of weeks, and he's raising money for Cancer Research UK, an organization that provides research funding for all types of cancer. And Craig is going to be running in honor of his father, Peter Bowers. I've donated £70 to Craig's fundraising efforts, and I'll post a link in the description in case you'd like to learn more. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for watching and for making it to the end, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?